Hi, crafting friends. I'm so glad you're back with us today. And anyone who's new for the first time, welcome. We're glad to have you. My name is Carla from Servant Crafts, and you know that I have favorite pattern books, and one of them is this pattern book here. And so today I'll take you through the assembly of the cute tartan cardigan that I have made from this book. Links to the pattern book will be in the description below. So let's put this great sweater together. The yarn I've used for today's project is Patton's Grace. It is 100% mercerized cotton. It's a 3-weight, so it's like a sport weight. And I've used 7 skeins of cardinal, 1 skein of night, and 1 skein of snow. It is washable on the gentle cycle or by hand and lay flat to dry. Do you have a sharp eye? Can you spot my mistake? The stitches used in this sweater are double crochet, chain, single crochet, and reverse single crochet. They're pretty simple stitches, but they are put together in such a way that makes a fantastic project. Yep, there's my mistake. I had to pull out about 20 rows and get it so that it was correct and matching. Lay out your pieces regularly and often to catch mistakes before they get too far. Check that your tartan spaces line up both horizontally and vertically. Now we're ready to prepare our first seam. The first seams are the shoulder seams. We're going to use the stitch markers first to mark the tartan spaces. Make sure that those line up. We don't want those misaligned at all. They will really show up when we weave our yarn through. So I line those up first, and then I attach a stitch marker to each corner of that front piece so that I can make sure that the edges line up as well. There's our first seam ready to be sewn. Thread a tapestry needle, a metal tapestry needle with yarn, and the best way to do that is to fold the yarn very tightly over the tapestry needle and pull it out. Then use that folded yarn to push through the eye of the needle. Once I make my first stitch, I leave a tail of about 1 inch or so, and I tie that in a double knot to make sure that's not going anywhere. Then I lay that tail down on the seam that I'm stitching so that I actually stitch the tail into the seam. No thread to weave in there. So we're going to put a stitch in every crochet, double crochet, single crochet, or chain space. Every one needs to have a stitch whipped through it there, and it's just a simple whip stitch. I do like these stitch markers. I'll put a link in the description for them for this because they're easy to take out. Once I get to them and I want to get them out of the way, they come out so easily that they don't really make me have to stop stitching. So that's my favorite. Once I get to the end of this seam, I'm going to do my knot, which is just really kind of a slip knot there, and pull it tight. And then since my yarn is threaded, I can just push the needle back through the seam about 4 or 5 stitches, and that is totally done. Now it's time to weave some ends in. To weave ends in, I thread up my tapestry needle. I push it down a row of about 4 stitches or so. Then I skip a bar and push it back up the way it came. That way, that bar is what's holding it there and doesn't allow it to come out. They're very secure. Now it's time to put on the sleeves. These, don't stress out, these are raglan sleeves. I know setting in sleeves can be a nightmare, but these sleeves set in flat. You have not sewn the sleeve seam yet. So you are going to attach the edge of the sleeve to that stitch marker that the pattern indicated you needed to put there to mark the sleeve. Now you're going to place a stitch marker lining up each of the tartan spaces just across the whole flat piece and around onto the back. Make sure that the back, also the back edge of your sleeve, matches that other stitch marker that the pattern indicated you place there. You need to make sure that the sleeves align with all of the horizontal and the vertical tartan rows. So once you get the sleeve sewn on, you can see how easy that is there, and everything lines up. Now it's time to start weaving the tartan. This is where the fun begins. So for each line that you're going to weave, you need to measure out a piece of yarn that is 4.5 times the length of that tartan space. Then you are going to thread it doubled through your needle. So you're going to take the two ends together, fold those over your needle, and push two ends through the eye of your needle so that you are working with a doubled piece of yarn. You're going to start to weave that through by starting underneath or on the inside of the garment, and so come up from the inside of the garment in that first tartan space, and then put your needle through the loop at the bottom. This makes a little slip stitch there that keeps your weaving from pulling all the way out. Then you're going to weave in and out through the tartan spaces, and make sure that you're pulling it flat but not too tight. You don't want it to pucker your fabric that you've made. And once you go all the way up and you get to the top, then you are going to skip a bar and come back down the other way. This creates the solid look as opposed to the kind of the line in the middle of the road look. My cat's so helpful. And this, I always made sure that my pass, my second pass, was to the left of my first pass. This I wanted to do just to make sure that it was consistent throughout the sweater, that the lines kind of matched. I didn't want it to look at it later and see that something didn't look right. Once you get to the bottom, you are going to go to the inside, make your knot, and then you're able to just clip off those ends. Once you finish all of the vertical rows throughout the whole sweater, front, back, you're going to go a solid all the way over the top of the shoulder seams and around to the back, and then on both of the sleeves. Then you're going to sew the side seams. Then you're going to do the same thing for the horizontal rows, and then you're going to sew the sleeve seams. Once you sew the sleeve seams, then you're ready to work on the cuffs. Now you can see I finished the cuffs. The cuffs are single crochet 4 rows and then a reverse single crochet. Then all the way around the bottom and up around the neck and the button bands is 5 rows of single crochet. And the 3rd row is where you're going to have your buttonholes. And then the 6th row is a reverse single crochet, and that's your finishing edge. Now, it's time. I did stitch the cuffs down in the sleeve seam so that they couldn't be come uncuffed. So they are turned back and then stitched down right there in that sleeve seam. So they don't show, but it does keep them from flipping out and coming uncuffed. Now it's time for the buttons, and I am kind of a button snob. I really like a special button on the projects that I do that need buttons, and I know that white buttons are not really very special, but I thought if I attach them with the black thread and I make a T on them or a cross, that would make them match the sweater accent and really kind of make them pop. So it's always a good idea to make sure that your buttons fit through your buttonholes. It would be terrible to get all your buttons on and then realize they don't fit through the buttonholes. So I always line up the button band and the buttonhole band exactly where it needs to be. Then you need to place a button under the first buttonhole. Make sure that you can see it through there, and so that you know that it's in exactly the right spot. Now for these buttons, I did need to rotate them a bit because I did want that horizontal and perpendicular and vertical. I wanted it to be really truly perpendicular and to show up as a real cross or a T on there. So I did rotate them a bit and make sure that they were just right. Then you're going to stitch the button on with black yarn. I did leave a tail so that I could tie a knot, and I was able to stitch horizontally 2 times and vertically 2 times before I ended on the back and tied a good double knot. There's nothing worse than having buttons fall off and trying to get it matched because you never find it when it falls off. So you know me, double knot and make sure that it stays. So after I finish sewing a button on, I button it into the buttonhole before I position the next button where it needs to be. That way I can be assured that my button band or my buttonhole band is not bulging or gaping. There's nothing worse than getting done and finding out that there's big bulges and gaps where those buttons are being fastened. So you want that to be nice and flat and smooth. And that's why I button each button after I attach it before I attach the next one. And here we're all finished. It turned out simple stitches, very simple stitches, but in an interesting pattern, really can make an eye-catching project, and lots of love for the little one who will wear this. Please remember that there are links in our description to everything you would need to make this project, and if you use the links, it helps to support us, and we really appreciate your support. So remember to like and to subscribe and to hit the bell icon so that you're notified whenever we upload a new project for you to check out. I hope you try it. Give all the glory to God in all the projects that we do, and enjoy.